Welcome back to the studio, everybody. Today we're going to talk about the value of your time with someone who has worked with hundreds, thousands of millionaires and billionaires and helped them learn stuff from them and help them manage their assets. So Jim, tell us about a little bit about the value of time, how you focus your time, and where people often misvalue their own time.
It's something that happens as you grow and as you improve in what you're doing and how you're making money. My first job out of college, I was a public school math teacher. And when I was a public school math teacher, I did my yard work. I mowed the lawn, I did everything. And one day I said this to my wife, and I've been with my wife for more than 30 years. So those of you who have been married a long time, you can relate to this. Because when you say something to your spouse and you're married for a long time, they just never forget. So what I said to my wife, Mimi, is I said, I am never gonna pay anyone to do the yard work. And she said, why not? I said, because I can do it. Why would I pay someone when I can do it myself? And that was true then. Fast forward years later, I'm a successful business owner. I'm making all this money. I'm talking to a friend of mine, another entrepreneur. He said, hey, Jim, what are you doing this weekend? I said, I'm doing the yard. He said, do you like doing the yard? I said, no, I hate doing the yard. He said, why are you doing the yard? And I said, because why would I pay someone to do the yard when I could do the yard? He said, let's do this little exercise. He made me get out a piece of paper and he said, okay, let's find out how much your time's worth. He said, how much revenue does your company generate in a year? How many hours do you work? And by the way, 50 weeks times 40 hours is 2,000 hours. That's an easy math for you. I did the calculation and he said, do you know, you could work 1 extra hour doing what you love and what you're good at and pay for an entire year of someone to do your yard. And have you ever heard something from someone where you just feel like, man, I was so stupid. How did I not even think of that? And so then I did. I started hiring someone to do the yard and made me much happier, made me more money. And I've gone on to do that in more and more areas. So for you, think about at what point is your time more valuable than what you're paying for? Unless you love it. Some people love to do their yard. It's relaxing, it's meditative. But when you can pay someone to do something for less than you can make doing something you care about and are good at, that's when you make the change and move on.
Awesome. That's really interesting. And you know what I like about that too is it feels like when someone is just trapped, it's an easy way to identify, like, does it cross this threshold? Does it still make sense for me to do this thing? Now, question for you. If, I know people that, they hire, a personal chef and people to tutor the kids and obviously lawn people and a driver so that they can always be working. How do you know which things to delegate out and like what's appropriate? Like you can go crazy with this thing. So how do you know when to stop?
I think the most important thing is what are you doing with that time that you're freeing up? Because often people will hire a chef or hire a driver and then they're not really using that time wisely. And what do I mean by wisely? If you want to spend more time with your kids and you're taking the time you're saving because you have a driver and you're actually using that to spend time with your kids, then fantastic. But if you're taking that time and you're just wasting it or doing other things that don't matter, then it's really not the time when you want to hire someone to do that. So another thing that I think about when it comes to hiring that is my friend Tim Grover, he said, people talk about time management, but more important than time management is focus management. So whatever time you free up, make sure you're laser focused on what you're using that time for. Building your business, doing your hobbies, spending time with your kids or your spouse or people you love or your friends. That's when it becomes a really smart thing to hire someone to do that job for you.
Yeah, and I think that distinction is super important because it's not about, hiring someone because you're lazy. It's about hiring someone because you're going to focus that time and honor your time somewhere else. And along those lines, do you have any like spaces of work, like, whether you're with your family or like do you keep your workspace sacred? Do you keep your family space sacred? How do you separate out and spend focused time on the things that matter?
It's a great question, something I've struggled with over the years. And I've built and run my business with my wife. So we built the business together. And that means, for those of you who have businesses that you run with your spouse, everything becomes intertwined. And I don't think there's such a thing if you're running a business with your spouse as work-life balance. It's something that we strive for that we call work-life harmony, because you're not going to have balance when you're running a business together. But you have to set boundaries and say, okay, on date night tonight, we're not going to talk about the business. I'm especially guilty. I love the business. I could talk about the business all the time. And my wife, Mimi, is good at saying, honey, enough business tonight. For the next couple hours, let's talk about other things. So that's how I kind of try to keep it checked and balanced.
Gotcha. And then the last question I wanted to ask, I guess the ultimate goal of, financial freedom is having, time freedom, location freedom. You're able to do what you want in life. Having accumulated the wealth that you have, are there still things that you feel trapped doing? And is that necessarily a good or bad thing?
There are things that I guess sometimes I feel trapped doing, and some of it's an obsession with business. I think one of the things that's key for everyone to do is to really map out your vision of where you want to be. Because what we do, or what I do, is you end up moving the goalpost all the time. And you keep saying, okay, now that I did that, I'm going to do this. And now that I did that, I want to do this. Kind of set your goals and make sure that you know what's going to make you content and happy. And when you get there, it's okay not to push in all those ways. And if you continue to push in all those ways, make sure you're not financially doing things to sacrifice what you have already created for you and your family.
Gotcha. That's really interesting. And I think most importantly about what you said, if you are pushing goals, make sure that it's not about reaching that destination. It's about if you are expanding yourself and you enjoy, the struggle and you enjoy improving upon yourself, and that's something that it's worth spending time. But if you're doing it because you think at the next mile mark you'll be happy, then that's obviously something that you need to work through mentally.
Yeah, that's very true. It's enjoying the process is so important. When I think about someone like Tom Brady, you could say he loves winning Super Bowls, but I think he loves something way more than winning Super Bowls, and that's trying to win Super Bowls. If you love the process, that's where you find fulfillment and happiness in life. Because if it's just winning the Super Bowl, you're not going to do it every year. Even Tom Brady doesn't do it every year. But preparing to win the Super Bowl, he loves that process. So whatever you're doing in your life, if you can fall in love with the process, whether it's your hobby or your business, that's where you're going to find true fulfillment.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in and talking about this. Hope you guys learned a little bit of a nugget. Write down your goals, make sure you know why you're doing things, and start being engaged in processes you love. We'll see you guys on the next one.